Gillian Tett, your latest piece for the Financial Times is titled, "Who Counts in Trump's America?" And you write in part this: on the afternoon of August 2nd, the Trump team delivered a bombshell that is highly political ahead of this year's midterm elections and amid wider fights about gerrymandering and Trump's insistence that the 2020 election was rigged. They explained that when America holds its next census in 2030, technical reforms will make it hard to publish the data about race and gender. The statisticians were shocked since they, not politicians, usually handle technical reforms. Worrying about the state of America's statistics might not seem that urgent given all the other explosive political rows swirling in Washington. But voters should pay attention. For at the heart of this story, there are three key questions. Can anyone paint an accurate portrait of what America is today? If so, how should this shape voting processes? And can this data be trusted in an era of manipulation, cyber hacks, and artificial intelligence?
So, Gillian, tell us how the Trump administration right now is making it harder in 2030 to figure out exactly who is an American, what the racial makeup of America is, and tell us how this may impact future elections.
Well, thank you. I mean, the census is a classic example of something linked to infrastructure, which seems incredibly boring. Everyone ignores most of the time because it's basically geeky and a bit nerdy. But in reality, it's crucial because it doesn't just shape how we measure the economy, which businesses and investors rely on. It also has a huge impact on the political system because it shapes how House seats are essentially allocated. And what's fascinating is that although 99.9% of voters just ignore it, Republicans have noticed that it's potentially got a lot of importance, and they are essentially mounting a very quiet campaign to reshape how the census is done in two ways. Firstly, to add a question about citizenship to the 2030 census, which many people would argue is unconstitutional because the Constitution says you have to count everybody, irrespective of status. And secondly, they're trying to change some of the technical ways that privacy protections are put into the census that effectively mean it's going to be almost impossible to publish detailed data on race or gender, or even much detailed data on minorities in small communities at all. Now, they're saying they're doing that to protect people's privacy, but many of the community activist groups are really upset because they argue essentially what's happening is you're blurring a picture of what America is. And that's got all kinds of implications for how we imagine politics going forward, most notably that it'll be harder to measure impacts of policies around things like race and gender.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's an obvious will impact the congressional redistricting over the next decade. Columnist at the Financial Times, Gillian Tett, as always. Thank you so much. You know, David French, years ago, Steve Bannon said he was a Leninist, and he and Trump were going to go in and they were going to tear down the state, take it to the ground. You look at what Gillian said they're doing with the census. One of the most basic, should be non-controversial things ever. They're trying to rig that, it seems. Mm-hmm. What they're doing with the post office, using the post office to do unconstitutional things with the midterm elections, taking it from the state's power and giving it to the executive branch, which is not in the Constitution. It's unconstitutional. You see what's happened at the DOD. You see what's happened at the Justice Department. You see what's happened at the National Institutes of all of these institutions that have been built up to protect Americans and to extend American power and safety across the globe, being torn down brick by brick, piece by piece by this Trump administration. And the question people have is, are we going to survive? Are we going to be able to rebuild this 2 years from now?
You know, I wouldn't call it tearing down the state so much as personalizing the state. all elements of the state are being put in the service of the person Donald Trump, being pulled from their primary purposes, being pulled from their primary areas of competence, being remade from the inside out to serve Donald Trump. And this is core to his authoritarian project. I mean, look, we have to understand that he looks at a Xi Jinping out there, he looks at a Vladimir Putin out there, and he sees peers with whom he envies in some ways. He envies their autonomy. He envies their authority. And as we've seen with the Canadian trade wars, he envies their spheres of influence. And so he is directing everything in on himself. And this is inherently corrupt. People can see that it's inherently corrupt. And when they're struggling economically, or they're dissatisfied economically, or they see all of these self-inflicted wounds that are focused in on Trump and not for their benefit, they get angry. And you're beginning to see rumblings here in this country that remind me a bit of the popular revulsion ultimately at Viktor Orban in Hungary. Authoritarianism does not sell, especially when people feel insecure financially.